when I went to school, I was the pudgiest kid, and so I got picked on quite a bit. I joined all the sports, all of them, and I wanted to be the leader of everything, working out twice a day, restricting my food like they told me to. But anyway, the so I'm still bigger despite doing all these things. And that's when I hear about The Biggest Loser. And I see these amazing transformations. Show ends, people gain weight, we all go into hiding. You don't see many Biggest Losers after that. I don't know, like some people who were able to keep it off, did they go get surgery right away? And so I have the gastric bypass. And this is kind of when just downhill from there. It's so funny when you get to this point and you look back and you go, oh, there was a red flag. There was a red flag. There was a red flag. As a child, I've always been overweight. I've always been the kid with the big pie face. I've always been the kid. I struggled horrendously with asthma. And looking back, we think maybe that's genetic and permanent, but I do not struggle with that at all today. And so there was definitely some things off in my environment or my exposures or something that was going on that was just kind of plaguing me. As a child, as a very little child, they were withholding food from me because that's what they were told to do. My parents are not bad people. They're great people. And they definitely tried to get the weight off of me. People look down at like, well, why do you have such a pudgy kid? Like, aren't you watching what they eat? Do you have them exercising? And they would, people would say things like that to me too. It's very difficult mentally too, because, they didn't mean to give this message, but I no longer give this message to my kids because I have a kid that struggles, that it's their fault and they got to stop eating. And to put that thought in your brain that eating for me is bad and I shouldn't be full. Being full is why I'm so big. And so you've got kind of some trauma there of all the bullying. I'm pretty sure I was being exposed. We lived in a very old home. It was like 100 years old. It had a wet crawl space underneath it. The home ended up being tore down. So I think I had some environmental exposure. There's just a lot going on. Then we were eating standard American, we every single meal had probably noodles and bread, and we washed it down with milk and orange juice. So the dietary wasn't the best. But in retrospect, as I look back, we were eating the same things as other people, but I was gaining weight and other people weren't. So to me now, that's an indicator something was going on with me, and it wasn't just the food. So as I become bigger, I get this mindset. I think this goes to show good parenting, that I was determined that I was not going to be the fat kid and I was going to have value and I was going to have worth and people were going to see how awesome I was if I just worked hard enough. And so that translated into like a very, let's go with obsessive compulsive person. I joined all the sports, all of them, and I wanted to be the leader of everything. And I was in band and choir, and I had to be in the top of all those things. And I played three sports at all time. Like I was playing multiple sports at a time, working out twice a day, restricting my food like they told me to. But then I would go on episodes that I couldn't explain. Like if I had one glass of orange juice, I would drink the whole pitcher. So we go into this restriction, and through high school, I'm about 165 to 170, which back in the 90s was big. These days, that would probably be considered pretty fit. But anyway, so I'm still bigger despite doing all these things. And when I get into college, I'm not playing sports. I thought that was the main thing, but now I'm still seeing some red flags. I'm not playing sports. We do have access to the cafeteria, and we have access to other things that you just don't as a child. There was a little bit of drinking, but I wasn't 21 and I didn't have a ton of access to that because I went to a private school and we were goody two shoes. But there was some of that there. And so at the time, I kind of blamed it on, it must be because once a month we're drinking. It must be because I have access to this cafeteria. It must be the lack of exercise that instead of gaining 15 pounds like some people do, I gained 60. In retrospect, just so many things. We were in moldy dorms, so many things. So anyway, I gained all this weight and now I'm struggling. I mean, now I'm 230 pounds. I'm 5'3", 5'4". This is big. I'm kind of lonely because I just believe that I am less than, I can't be as smart as people, I can't be as, and in my head, I would never say those things out loud, but those things are playing in my head, which I think is another addition to you know, when you think negative things, that's the stress on your body, and I think it's inflammatory. So I gained this weight and I go home my first summer and my stepmom and I do Adkins. And I want to put in there too, I got a stepmom. I was raised by a single dad until I was 10, and then I got a stepmom. And the minute she came into our life, the meals were cooked at home. I mean, it's not like we continued this standard American. Like the minute she came into our life was the minute dieting really came into our life. She's making these things from home. She's adding the vegetables. We're starting to cut things even at 10 years old, which may be why I went from being like a pudgy kid to being just an overweight person, is that we were already doing these health things. And so I can't look back and say, oh, we were just eating so unhealthy, because if there was a home trying to eat healthy, it was ours starting at 10. So anyway, I come home from college my first summer, and that is my first real diet. And we do Atkins, and I get like 30 or 40 pounds off. I get back into the 100s, and I'm like, this is the ticket. We're just not restricting enough. But we were a little bit onto something with that meat, you know? So, but I go back to college and I gain it all back, and I'm still struggling. And I even studied abroad in Europe, and it really stunk because I'll never forget, I had no clothes that fit me. I didn't know what the temperature was necessarily going to be like back then. The internet wasn't as good as it is today. It's not only I'm bigger than most people in America, I'm bigger than most people in the world in my head and in real life. So we come back, and that's when I hear about The Biggest Loser. And I see these amazing transformations. And I follow those people to this day because we're a team, we're a club these days. But and I'm like, that is the ticket. And I have a dream that I'm going to be on this show. And I don't know if I've ever had a vivid dream like that before, but it was incredibly vivid. And I mean, at this point, like season two, 250,000 people applied to be on the show. I don't know how many applied to be on season three, but I'm going to guess it maybe was double. I mean, because at that time we saw 2 seasons of these people getting their dream bodies. So I apply, I go to an open casting, I don't hear anything. I submit like the worst quality video you've ever seen. We didn't have CapCut back then. We didn't have Google Meet. I had a VHS that I put on somebody put on their shoulder. It had to be plugged in, and the editing was us rearranging the clips on a TV, and we recorded it with this big huge thing. So we re-recorded VHS with a VHS. It was bad. But I think it was meant to be, because I got an email from Susie Johnson at gmail.com that said she was part of The Biggest Loser and that I was being selected. I was like, is this real? Like, how would they even know that I applied? But anyway, I responded and went back and forth, and it turned out it was real. And I showed up there, and they do all this medical testing on us. They put us in the bod pod. This was my first time ever getting a DEXA. It turned out my season, there was one person from every state, and they were only going to keep 14 people, and then everybody else was going to get sent home. At the time, I thought this was so horrible because I got sent home. In retrospect, this was the best gift that I ever got. It was such a gift, because as an at-home contestant, we had full-time access to Dr. Huizenga, a nutritionist that was absolutely amazing, and then a psychologist. We had support phone calls. I think it was twice a week, maybe it was once a week, but it was a lot of support. We got a gym membership. We were given meal plans. Each person was given their macros and their calorie, because it was a lot about calorie and exercise. And I'll tell you what our plan was. For me, it was 1,274 calories broken into 3 meals with, they said, a hand size of protein. The protein had to be there. And he said it had to be meat. He said the vegan is not going to work here. Even at that time, which now we're talking 2006, he had said he had worked with vegans, and he's an LA doctor, and they had heart attacks in their 40s. And he had said it was because the plant fat doesn't move through our vessels very well. And so it was causing people this breakage. But if you mix plant fats with animal fats, it moves things through. He said the importance of eating the meat, but it had to be lean because we didn't have room in our 1,274 calories for fat. A couple black cherries, some cocoa powder, I forget what else was in there, but it was lower sugar, and the protein was not coming from a powder. It was coming from ricotta cheese. And there was a little bit of sugar to, he said, replace that glycogen that we just depleted, and we'd have that after. So in the morning, I start at 5 a.m. I do an hour and a half of cardio. I drink my shake. I give it a little time. My breakfast would be like egg whites with spinach and tomatoes, and maybe a dash of low fat cheese. Can you believe we were removing the fat from the cheese? Ugh. That would be my breakfast. Then I went and worked for my dad. It was a manual labor job. I pre-packed my lunch, and my lunch would be like a big salad with some chicken on it and some fat-free dressing, which in retrospect, again, is like, anyway. Then I would continue to work for my dad. We didn't have step counters back then, but I bet just working for my dad, I was getting in 15,000 steps because it was a manual labor job. I would have a dinner, which would be probably like a big bunch of broccoli that's steamed, and then some chicken. There was a lot of chicken, a lot of shrimp, and a lot of egg whites. And then a snack. I'm pretty sure my snacks would be like nuts and some more vegetables. And then in the evening, I would have a second workout in which I would try to do some lifting and another 45 minutes of cardio. So the total workout for the day would be 2.5 hours. There's always lifting, there's always cardio, and that's how I'd break throughout the day. I had written down everybody's statistics from the seasons before, and I was like, I am just not good enough. And I'm not losing weight like they are. I must not be sticking to it good enough. There must be something wrong with me. Much to my surprise, I think it was 6 or 8 weeks in, I get a call. You're in the top three. And I'm like, weird. I must be number three. And so I get there and I find out, no, I had beat all 36 people at home and all 14, 13, 35 people at home and 14 people on the ranch. And I was like, weird. And I don't think I even realized at the time that I had beaten the people on the ranch. And why didn't I beat everybody? Why didn't I keep up with the previous seasons? Because a week on TV is not a week in real life. It could be 2 weeks. It could be 3 weeks. It depends on when can they get the staging, because you have the different competitions in the different locations. When can you get the camera crews? When can you film the last chance workout? When can you film this and that? And it just doesn't line up with a week. It just takes longer to film all of that because of how California works and budgeting. And so I here I was I in how many Americans out there are comparing themselves to the week by week on The Biggest Loser? And I look back and I watch and they're like, Jeff lost 30 pounds in a week. And you're like, why can't I do that? Man, and look how great he looks at the end. You're comparing yourself to something that's just not real. Next thing I find out when I go on the show is they don't have access to the doctor. Only on the doctor episode for an hour. They don't have access to a nutritionist. Only the episode where the nutritionist shows up. They don't have anybody cooking for them. They don't even have a trainer sitting there every day. The trainers are there when the cameras are there. And this is not a bad person thing. They are doing other things as well. They live in Hollywood. Maybe they have their own clients. Maybe they're working out and sleeping. I don't know, but they weren't there every day. They just weren't. And so these people were essentially, they were taking pictures of and video of themselves in their skivvies at their highest weight of their life. And then the pressure is on. The cameras are in the corner following you everywhere you go. You're mic'd up 24 hours a day. You're sequestered from the world. You have no access to any podcasting, any YouTube, no access to the outside world. And they're following you around. And so you expect yourself to be absolutely perfect. And because you don't have that continual guidance, you think perfect is not eating and exercising constantly. And so when we got there, my partner and I were the only people who didn't have injury. And we didn't have injury because we were breaking our workouts up and because we weren't working out all day long. We were told the magic sauce, which is if you work out twice a day and you give yourself some rest in between, you're not going to get injured. And they were running all day with their 300, 400-pound bodies. And they were doing that heavy lifting because on the TV show, we were told that last chance workout is how you lose the weight, And so it really, behind the scenes of the show is pretty tough for me. In between the show and the finale, bad things happened. And I didn't talk about it for a long time because I just blamed myself. And now I just see myself as a human. So I'm going to tell you a human story here. I went back to college. I have the same friends. They're not on the same journey as I am. I didn't go and have the confidence to go be friends with the D1 athletes. I stuck with my friends who are awesome people to this day who were not on the same journey. And so I kind of reverted back to where I was, eating in the cafeteria, drinking wine, not working out. When you mix in, at this time, I'm 21. When you mix in drinking with health goals, it's not super great. You mess with your blood sugar. Now you're having cravings for other things. You're not feeling good, so you're not working out. And it just was a big struggle. And I'll tell you, the struggle got so bad that there's this activity. I went to college in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And it's a known thing that like a pastime is to drink and drive in the fields. Because if you get in an accident, you're going to hit corn. Why is that a thing? I don't know. Like, why wouldn't you just stay in your dorm? I don't understand. But I partaked in that one time and I got pulled over. And so Adrian went to jail in between the two. And in the end, I had blown just about the legal limit. And so they threw the case out. And it didn't end up being, I did not get the punishment. And I used that in my brain of like, see, it's not bad. I'm going to tell you, just fast forward 8 years later, I decide I'm not good at drinking and I quit drinking. So, but in retrospect, I'm a human being. After I told that story, I found out I'm not at all the only person in The Biggest Loser to struggle with drinking, because you have these people in this pressure cooker and they lose all this weight and they get all this attention, and there it's so much worse because now you've reduced your metabolism. You have slaughtered your metabolism and you struggle to not gain weight immediately after you leave the ranch. And now you're getting all this attention for not being big, for inspiring people. So you add this attention to a person who's used to not getting attention, and you add your metabolism is in the tank, and you add alcohol, and so many people, I was not alone, so many people struggled with having a healthy balance with alcohol or whatever. Praise the Lord, I never did drugs or anything. But I want to put out there that we've lost people. We have lost, there's over 300 of us, I think, and we've lost people. So anyway, I come to the finale and I'm just kind of like, listen, guys, I'm hanging on by a thread, but I'm here. I had gained weight. I was 161 when I left the ranch. I hydrated myself and I was already 168. And I pretty much just struggled to just maintain that until the finale. And so on paper, I think I'm the only Biggest Loser that gained weight between um, the filming and the finale. If you look statistically, I think I might have been the only one. But anyway, I come to the finale and people, I didn't know about these things. They had clonics. They had everything removed. They were spitting. They had sauna bags. They were like, Adrian, why aren't you doing this? And I'm like, because that's nuts. I don't care. I'm not going to win. Like, and so I like went in the sauna a little bit, but I just really, people had plans on how they were going to get every ounce of whatever they could off their body. And so at this point, you're looking and going, okay, so how much, some of the trainers will say they didn't lose muscle. Yeah, they did. Because it really wasn't about muscle and health. It was about weight. And so if you could lose as much muscle as possible, you did. And if you looked at these people up close, they definitely lost muscle. Definitely, definitely, definitely. And there were people where the spouses asked me, could you keep an eye on my spouse? I'm concerned they're going to have a heart attack or pass out on the stage. Oh, by the way, we were able to weigh in naked ahead of time. And so by the time people were on stage, they were able to drink and eat something. So you didn't see the full on, what were they looking like as we weighed in. So anyway, that is the finale. Show ends, people gain weight, we all go into hiding. You don't see many Biggest Losers after that. I don't know, like some people who were able to keep it off, did they go get surgery right away? I don't know. But it doesn't, now what I know, it doesn't make sense to keep all your weight off because you have absolutely tanked your metabolism. You have less muscle. You've been in starvation mode for a year. I It doesn't make any sense to me how people would keep it off, but I am interviewing different losers biggest losers to see like how did you keep it off or didn't you or what did you do? Like tell us the juicy details cuz I know for me I went into a year of gaining 100 pounds. Like it was after that I went into hiding and one thing turned to another and I just blamed myself and I was like, I am a horrible. Obviously, this is why there's obesity. It's because of me, because of how I eat, not, hey, maybe something's off in the brain. Hey, maybe you're in starvation mode. Hey, hunger cues. Anyway, the next 8 years I spend struggling. Eventually, I have children. I get all the way up over 300 pounds. I stop weighing myself at 330. Some of this is preeclampsia and pregnancy. I start getting some red flags here. With each child, I do not have a milk supply, despite being a type 1 psychopath who is going to do everything you possibly can for as long as you possibly can. Even 6 months into pumping and nursing and not sleeping and taking all the supplements and eating all the food and getting all the assessment and going to all the appointments, droplets are coming out. And our medical system tells me it's because you didn't try hard enough. You don't have milk because you didn't try hard enough. Oh, it's because you're stressed. Huh, couldn't be you're stressed because your child isn't getting milk and you're trying so hard. You gained weight because it is your fault because you're eating food. You're tired because of all the stress you're putting on yourself. Not, hey, let's look into your thyroid. Let's look into your hormones. Nope, it's because of you. But here, just like the biggest loser, we're here to fix you. Let's give you a surgery, because you can't control yourself. So let's surgically make it so you can control yourself. So I end up having gastric bypass. And this is kind of when just downhill from there because I am able to get back into the 160s. So to bring this all back, high school 160s, biggest loser 160s. I run and restrict down to the 230s and then gastric bypass, get back down to 160s. But once I hit this area, I, in retrospect, I have some theories why it's difficult to go below that for me, but that's when I start going back up. And then I struggle in to just not be 200 and something pounds again. And throughout every one of these attempts, I'm getting back into the 200s over and over and over, despite being a perfectionist who's working so hard. And throughout time, I'm upping my running. I'm downing my calories. I'm downing my fat. And by the way, having gallbladder issues. And they're like, we don't know why you have all this pain. No idea. And I go in for scans because I'm in like so much pain that I'm getting fevers. And they're like, it looks fine. It's a little sludgy. Nobody ever said, hey, let's work on your fat intake. Anyway, so gastric bypass, after that, that's when I start struggling with anemia. I'm having to get the infusions. I'm doing the supplements. I'm trying to up my iron through my gut. But in retrospect, like how stupid is it to tell someone, we're going to change your anatomy so that you can't absorb things, but also absorb this. And they push those supplements. Like, okay, so I'm not absorbing calcium or iron through food, but you're going to give me an oral supplement. Anyway, so, and then I start struggling with chronic fatigue. I start having constant food reactions, which I don't even know what this is. I'm trying to piece the pieces together, but when you go to the doctor, they just have no idea. They run vague things and they send you on your way. So I have no idea why, like sometimes when I don't feel good, and sometimes then the worst of all has been the reactive hypoglycemia. And it could happen. Here's what was weird, and it took me so much playing with food to figure out that my reactive hypoglycemia wasn't just from food. It was from hormones as well. It was from stress. So everyday things in your life that you don't even see as stress, my adrenals are so in the tank that I can't handle a kid coming up to me and touching me. Like you don't recognize that as a stress in your day-to-day life, but after your hormones aren't working properly, it does. So it takes me quite a while. I get a head injury. I find out that I'm in like a very traumatic marriage and I end the marriage, and the trauma of the marriage gets worse after you end that type of marriage. So we're going through trauma. I slip and hit my head on the ice, and I leave my body and come back. That's how bad of a head injury it was. I mean, it's not good if you leave your body. I start struggling with the vertigo, and I can't. I'm like getting motion sick really well. The food reactions are increasing. The hypoglycemia is through the roof. I end up getting the bad virus while I'm pregnant, and I get it bad. I get pneumonia on all sides of my lungs. They tell me, listen, we're going to have to C-section your baby out and put you on a ventilator because the pneumonia was everywhere. And I couldn't breathe. I was turning green. Within weeks, I had lost 12 pounds in my third trimester of my pregnancy. I was sick, you guys. So you go to the doctor, and all they offer is we'll do some experimental shots, medications on you. We could put you on a vent. And I didn't like any of those options. And so I left. I had a doctor who had left the system. I worked a little bit with her. It wasn't quite enough. So I came back because it wasn't quite enough. And they gave me the monoclonal antibodies. I mean, I was scared to death. I mean, literally until probably 4 months ago, I actually talking about it cry a little bit because they don't talk about it. And I've been worried that my son and I are going to just grow a fourth arm at any second because we were experimented on during pregnancy. I think now in my recent research, though, that those were actually pretty medicinal, and I could be wrong. I would love to know more about those, but of course they yanked those. Like right after I got them, you could no longer access them, which to me is a little bit of a flag of maybe I got the good stuff. But I left too. They still wanted me to stay. And the course of plan was still the same, that I needed to stay until they C-sectioned this baby out. They told me it was no longer going to be safe for me to birth my baby because I was going to hemorrhage. So I left. In retrospect, my doctor actually told me she was praying for me every day. She acted so cool and calm, but she was like, no, she was a FLCCC doctor. So she worked with people all over the country, and she saw things. It didn't always turn out as well as it did for me. And I am grateful to God that I was taken care of and it was okay. But when I got home, she put me on a whole protocol as well. And I birthed my baby at home in a bathtub. Everything goes perfect. There was absolutely no hemorrhaging. The water in the tub was barely even tinted. Everything went pretty well, but it was a little bit downhill from there for me. I still didn't have any milk despite being home, keeping that baby. We stayed skin to skin. We did all the things, okay? We had all our meals pre-made. They were all whole foods, dairy-free, chemical-free, with like lower inflammatory plants. Because at that point, I was onto something here. I knew we had to avoid certain plants, and no dairy, low spices. And I had all this food pre-made. I had all the Earthly. It's a website, Earthly Supplements, and I had this baby skin to skin. We did not leave the bed. There's like this is it 777? You stay in bed for 7 days. You stay near your bed for 7 days, and you don't do any stairs for like 7 weeks. It's something crazy like that. We did all those things. At my 6-week appointment, my midwife comes and says, honey, we tried. This baby hasn't gained weight. We did all the things. At that point, I was anti-pumping because you were told that messes with it too. So I am just nursing this baby around the clock. He's got a great latch. He's actually pretty content, which is a little bit odd that he's not getting enough, and he's a pretty content guy. And it was time. And praise the Lord, my midwife knew people who were like-minded, who had never been to a doctor before, had never taken medicine, did not drink alcohol, and had this flowing milk supply for her twins and extra. And so I had this amazing milk donor. So between me and her, this is the first baby to get all breast milk for like a year. And that was just like, this is my healthiest baby. This is my only baby without colic. I have 2 children who test positive for the spectrum. One of my children, he did not speak till he was 5. He had all these health issues. He had eczema all over his body, allergies, food reactions, sensory processing disorder. Then I have another one who has a totally different type where he's just like sensory all the time, and he's been very aggressive. And so we have two boys on the spectrum, and this is my third boy, and he doesn't have any of those things. So we start questioning, throughout this, like we're questioning, like, is the advice that I'd always been given good? And we're starting to go a different route, but I'm not feeling well. And my doctor tests me because I'm like, we don't have milk. We still don't have milk. And that's when we find out all these autoimmune conditions, all this autoimmunity, all this inflammation. She didn't necessarily have a ton of solutions other than let's eat properly, let's eat our meat, I added some low dose naltrexone, let's add some supplements, let's start focusing on healthy fats, let's give it some time. But it just wasn't quite enough. My arms and legs were going numb. I couldn't drive because I would be a few minutes behind the wheel and I would start getting lethargic. Every time I eat, I'm having food reactions. My energy is so low. I'm having a difficult time getting in and out of the shower. And there were some crazy neurological ones. Every single night, this terror would come upon me. And I would hold my babies. And I was so terrified that I was going to somehow squeeze them too hard or do something, and they were just going to vanish in front of my eyes. So I'm having terror. I don't know how to explain this to people, but these symptoms are debilitating. And it's not okay. And something needs to change. And that's when my dad said, you should check out the carnivore diet. And they say it takes like at least 6 times of someone really, really, really saying something for a seed to be planted. He plants a seed. I start going on YouTube. I start finding people. And that is how I stumbled upon like where I am today. The carnivore diet really was another level that I had no idea how inflammatory our foods are, how much food can affect you. I start digging into addictive brain and how food can help that. But then I start learning that food can't be the only ticket. There has to be other tools in place. This is when I start digging into healthy oils, how things can affect, like, here's a couple of things that absolutely food can't cure everything. It's taken me 2 years to come there, that food cannot cure everything. I really believed it did, but it cannot. But it is a huge ticket and can significantly, almost immediately alleviate so many things. And it has to be part of your piece towards healing. I don't think that there can be good healing if you are eating processed foods and inflammatory things and GMO'd plants sprayed with crud. If you continue down that path, you can only get so far. Really think food has to be part of the ticket. But what did cutting the plants do for me? I went from chronically constipated my whole life, taking all these fibers and eating all my fiber and adding my fiber supplements and taking my magnesium supplements, and nothing worked. I was so bogged up. I was like immediately alleviated coming on carnivore. And it was like, wow, this is the best bowel movement I've ever had in my whole life. No more gas, none of it. Another one is the mental health. Like, I went from having terror to being very alleviated. I just have situational emotion now. You know, something happens to your kid at school, you're going to be anxious for at least a period of time. And you can utilize all your 12-step programming. You can utilize your prayer. You can utilize all those tools. I think those are important and great. But when you're physically inflamed, when your brain is on fire, you're still going to struggle. You're still going to be like, I'm so happy I got it, even with all those tools that you also need. So emotionally, you get so much better when you stop with the inflammatory things. What is inflammatory is going to be different for each person. For me, I had to take it all the way down to getting rid of all the plants. Some people can absolutely have the plants and they'll feel a lot better if they cut the processed food. So I think what's inflammatory is going to be different for different people. What else? The hypoglycemia. Now, I think it calmed my hormones down enough and it healed my adrenals enough. I can handle some stress and not have hypoglycemia, but also cutting all of the carbohydrates. Now I don't have anything to shoot insulin at. I mean, you do slowly shoot insulin at meat and animal fat, but it's a lot slower. So my post gastric bypass body handles it a lot better. So those are some of the things it absolutely helped. It also absolutely helped with my food reactions because if you cut things that a lot of people are reacting to, um, you stop having as many food reactions. But here was the limit, guys. I still struggled to go out to eat. There was like cross contamination, maybe of a spice, maybe of a seed oil, or maybe they let their food out. And so there was more histamines on their food than I allow in my home. And so I'm still having food reactions. I'm still, if I divert at all and eat a plant, I'm still having hypoglycemia. So it's a good tool to alleviate it, but it wasn't curing it. I still have this chronic inflammatory response syndrome. It's when your body, for some reason, goes into a state of heavy inflammation and it struggles to kick it back off. And I think this is the root of your autoimmunity. If you're struggling with autoimmunity, I think that there's inflammation underneath that's kicking that. And your body doesn't know how to react. So it kind of starts, they say it's like being blind and knowing that there's an invader and you've got a gun and you're just like, I know there's an invader. I think he's over there. Pew, pew. No, no, he's over there. Pew, pew. And so your body starts attacking itself, trying to get to that invader, but it can't see it because it's not communicating right because you're just so inflamed. And so some things start happening when you're that inflamed, and that is you stop being able to detox well. And maybe you weren't even a good detoxer to begin with, which is how you got here. Maybe you had a heavy toxin exposure. Maybe you're living in a home that's filled with black mold. And over time, that your body just can't find those invaders. And so it becomes so inflamed. And another one would be that head injury. This is very prevalent in people who are in an abusive relationship, that chronic state of stress. And so you could actually probably do this to yourself if you're a stressed out person. That chronic state of stress can cause inflammation. And eventually, that inflammation can cause your body to stop communicating properly. And so I found part of the reason I was reacting so poorly in that beginning is because we had a water damaged ceiling. And I didn't think that was a big deal. But it turned out when I was that inflamed, I could no longer handle not just the mold, but when you have that water damage there, it causes a whole family of bacteria and toxins to grow because they all start eating each other and growing and growing and growing, and you're inhaling that. And a lot of people can detox that, but once you're chronically inflamed, you're going to struggle to detox that. So now that's adding to your pile of problems. You know, you'll hear people too, they're having the food reactions because their gut is so inflamed, things are getting through. You're having brain issues because your gut is your brain is inflamed. They say if your gut's inflamed, your brain is inflamed. So these toxins from your food, from the environment, from your detergent, from all these toxins other people can handle, the sprays that are on the fabric in your car, you start reacting to those. And what stinks is in the beginning, you don't know where the hits are coming from. And so, the beginning of this, yeah, I added carnivore. We also moved out of our home that had that water damaged ceiling. I'm telling you guys, you couldn't hardly see it. There was one little black spot this big. You couldn't smell it. Here's another toxin. I had a farm. And birds and rabbits emit endotoxins. And I'm sitting here cleaning up their poop, inhaling it as I'm in the barn. Healthy people can handle that, detox it, but you should still have good ventilation. Unhealthy people, you're just taking that load on. And that's why my it was so extreme. I did rehome my farm. My farm got processed and rehomed. So praise the Lord, I stumbled upon a woman named Dr. Judy Cho, or maybe she's not a doctor. Let's go with Judy Cho. And she's amazing. And so if you're out there struggling, Judy Cho is where I would start because she actually will say things that nobody else will say. Some people will say, "Hey, you got to add fruit to feel better." And she goes, "Well, ah, you're masking a symptom by adding fruit. And the reason you're having these symptoms is because this blood marker right here, and this blood marker right here, and this blood marker here." So anyway, I'm learning And it's such a long process. Somebody said, hey, it's your gut. I did all the gut protocols. Another person said, hey, it's your adrenals. So I'm looking into adrenal protocols. Another person said, you have Hashimoto's. So I'm looking at Hashimoto's. I'm looking at all the things. And it just, ah, anyway, let's start with the food. Let's start with the air you're breathing and see a functional doctor who can help you with all these things. And there's a lot of great practitioners you can find through the carnivore community. I'm not saying everybody has to be carnivore at all. I think it's a great ticket, though, to getting you some relief while you work on what's going on here. Because if you're having food reactions, if you're struggling to not gain weight, if you're having brain fog, if you're having fatigue all the time, you guys, this isn't, it's normal, but it's not healthy. There's something going on. So I was telling you in my email that my final ticket was, I'm carnivore. I'm feeling better. I can't quite get this inflammation down because I can't find a perfect environment. We moved 5 times in 2 years trying to find a perfect environment. And I'm still struggling. I'm doing these challenges and I can maintain my weight if I do hard things. But the second I stop the hard things and just back down and just eat carnivore and just work out once a week and just be a mom of four, I start gaining immediately. If I add certain things back, it's an immediate 20 pounds. Like I added coffee creamer back to my coffee, 20 pounds. Something else was off. And so I go to my SIRS doctor and I say, gosh, this is what I'm struggling with. I gained one week, I gained 14 pounds.
Wow.
Something is off. And he said, okay. And he sees all these things. I work with a guy named Dr. Alan Grunning out of Fort Myer, Florida. He is fantastic. If you have people struggling with autism, with random disease, with fibromyalgia, with MS, he can really, really, really help you. Unlike so many people out there, he's seen so many things and helped heal so many people. He'll run blood markers. He also is retired, but came back because he struggled with an illness and saw a need. He uses anything over his expenses, he puts towards a free clinic. So, like, a lot of people are going to struggle because they're going to say, yeah, a concierge doctor can help me, but I don't have $20,000 and my insurance won't cover this. His prices are reasonable for what he's giving you. He's charging a third of what they charge when you go to a standard doctor for a 15-minute appointment, and he gives you an hour. And then he takes all profits and puts it towards a free clinic for those who can't afford it. Anyway, he started me on some T3 medicine that seemed to give me a little bit of my energy back, but I still was still gaining weight and it wasn't quite the ticket. And he didn't feel comfortable upping me any further because we want to watch our receptors and we want to keep working on the root cause of why the thyroid's off. So we also added some bioidentical progesterone, which for some people would be progesterone, some people would be testosterone, some would be estrogen. He's going to run those numbers and look at it. What's the ticket for you? I finally stop gaining weight, but I'm still struggling with this inflammation. I'm still struggling with those. At this point, I'm back in the 180s and I'm only 5'3", almost 5'4". So this is kind of a lot of weight. None of my clothes are fitting. I'm feeling really puffy. That's when I ran into Dr. Amy Horniman and found out about peptides. It's just been such a journey of keep going. Maybe that doctor's not the right one. And that one wasn't. And I'm 100 doctors in, but I have found someone to help. I have found some tools that have helped. And we are getting this. And the guy I work with believes that if we can continue to work on our body, we can get off of a lot of these things, or at least be on the very minimal dose. So he's not just trying to mask symptoms. We're trying to actually alleviate the underlying issue, which our understanding is inflammation. So that's where we are today. But one of the tickets where I was like, I knew that the marriage that I was in was not healthy was because when I had surgery, there was zero support. And when I was sick, there was zero support. I'm very grateful that I was able to get out of that. My family is amazing. My husband, I did end up getting remarried. He's been supportive along the way. The very first thing, our very first date, I said, I have this hypoglycemia. I have to eat really weird, just so you know, because he took me to an Italian noodle restaurant. And I was like, I'd like just the meat and maybe a little salad. So he's always known that I was a little different, and he's always been supportive. He's been supportive of me on the carnivore diet. He's been supportive of me going to these doctors. He's been amazing. And then my parents are amazing. The other half of my family thinks I'm nuts. But my immediate family is very supportive, seeing how much I struggle, and then so grateful that we're in a different spot. And honestly, as they see me doing these things, they think maybe I could feel a little bit better if I implemented some of those things. And then I really feel like a blessed woman. I know that I didn't find this on my own. I believe God brought me here, and I feel so grateful. Some people would say knowing about chronic inflammatory response syndrome is an absolute curse because it may require you to leave your job. It may require you to move. It may require you to leave a marriage because your partner doesn't believe you and doesn't support you. It may require you losing friends and family because it's so hard and you have to stick to your guns to clean up what you're being exposed to that's making you so sick. But I've been very fortunate to be able to have a partner that will work with me. And it's been tough, but we have stuck it out and gotten through the hard stuff together. And I thank God that He brought me along this path. And I actually thank God that He helped me have some of these tough lessons because as other people sit that out there and struggle, I can say, that didn't work for me either, but it's okay. Here's another thing we can try and don't lose hope because things that work, gastric bypass actually works for some people. Just because it didn't work for me doesn't mean it didn't work for other people. But if it's not working for you too, it's okay. There's not hope lost because when that didn't work, it was like, well, there's nothing left, you know? But I think God brought some of these challenges to just say, like, first of all, you can get past those tough things. And secondly, don't give up. And there's more. And it didn't work for me either, but this did. And yeah, I don't know. I feel very, very grateful at the end of the day. I feel grateful that I got pulled over for drinking and that I ended up quitting drinking and that I went through a 12-step program to build my faith and to take responsibility, to see my things and things, and overall to have gratitude. If you're miserable, you're not living in gratitude. You're forgetting that you can see and you have hands and you can walk and you have energy and you have a roof over your head and you have something to eat today. You forget when you're miserable, you forget all the things around you. So some people would say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I submitted myself to that torture and ruined my body. And they're just so negative. But I got the most amazing gift. I got the most two amazing gifts. Number one, the realization that anything in the world is possible. Any dream, any God can like literally make anything happen. God can make anything happen. And to be able to experience that, let's say 300,000 people applied. I got selected. I was like, you just don't even know what is possible. You don't. And so somehow I don't know how to give that to other people of like the fact that there is no ceiling on what could happen in your life. There's no ceiling. And so that is such a gift to actually get to experience anything, any dream that you ever had is possible. And then the second thing was realizing I'm still Adrienne, whether I weigh 300 pounds or whether I weigh 100 pounds. I'm the same human being in here. And when you recognize that your value is so much more than what you look like, that is such a gift. My next gift was when I went into AA and recognizing to stop comparing myself to other people. I know this isn't exactly where you were going with that, but knowing these things in your heart changes how you think every single day, and how you think every single day affects your physical well-being. So when I joined AA, despite still eating inflammatory food, a level of that anxiousness came off. Because if you're living in gratitude, if you stop comparing yourself to other people, if you start seeing your own part, a lot of that not having control gets taken away because you look at what can I control and what am I grateful for. And when you start thinking that way, and it takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of unwiring to stop doing that so much? And are you giving it to God? If you're sitting here anxious and frustrated, then you haven't given it to God. It's still in you and it's not in him. This is another thing where my heart for other people comes in is I used to I inadvertently think I was more or less than other people. And now I see people more as human. Okay, you're a drug addict. You're a human who is suffering from addiction, and you're just as human as I am. And maybe you're doing super destructive things, but if that addiction was healed in you, you'd be living a different life. And I just have compassion for where you're at. And I'm going to pray that you be alleviated of that addiction and that you're able to heal because you got to heal your mind, your body, your soul. Instead of being like, well, there's a drug addict, it's like, oh my gosh, there's a human being that is struggling. So when your brain switches, now you start having compassion. Oh my gosh, you're 500 pounds? Your metabolism. Can we get you some help? Like, how can I help you? It's not that you ate too much pizza. It's not that you're less than person. It's that you are struggling with some lymphedema. You're struggling with some metabolism. You're struggling with brain inflammation. Oh my gosh, how can we get you some help? You want to be my friend? Let's help you. You're here, so you've now been exposed. Well, first of all, never give up. Keep looking. That's free. Looking is free. Going to doctor and doctor and doctor, and we can't afford that. That's not free. But just keep your eyes out for the seed. Whether you pray to God or you pray to the universe, you pray to a spoon, something out there can bring what you need to see to you, and just keep your eyes open, because I believe if you never give up, it's going to come. What is supposed to come to you is going to come to you. And just because something works for someone else doesn't mean it's going to work for you, but you could try. And just because that didn't work, maybe that you have to find the thing that is going to work for you, and it is out there. Community is so important too. There were times where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do, because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't have income. And my husband was like, we're not moving. We're not moving. This isn't a real thing. No other person has ever said they're allergic to mold. Allergic isn't the word. Reacting to mold. No other person has this. If you go to your doctor, they will say that's not a thing. That's woo-woo. And I was like, but I know that it's going to be okay. I don't know how it's going to be okay, but I know that it's going to be okay. And the next thing was community. On those days when I was feeling such despair and such trap and such frustration and to find a community, there's a CIRS community, and I would go there and I would say, this is what I'm going through. And they'd be like, us too, but it's going to be okay. And then there'd be a person there who was on the other side to say, it was tough right there too, but I'm on the other side. I love community. I love God. And yeah, don't do it alone.